My name is Jules and I am the Training and Engagement Manager for the Mental Health Association of San Francisco. And I want to tell my story today for a couple of reasons. First of all, because I think that most people, when they meet me, don't have any idea that I have a history of mental health conditions and experiences around that. And also because I know that when I was really in my lowest moments, having some major issues with mental health, it would have really helped me to hear somebody else share their experiences. It would have made me feel less alone, hopefully, made me feel like it was worth going through all of this and giving me hope that someday I would be able to come out on the other side. So my history of mental health issues began way back in my life when I was about 11 or 12 years old. And up to that time, I'd been a happy kid. For the most part, I was a smart kid. I was always into talented and gifted programs and recognized a lot for my accomplishments and stuff. But there was a real sharp drop-off in my academic performance, in my ability to connect with other kids socially by about the time that I got to junior high. And I didn't know really what was going on at the time. I don't think my family did or any of the adults around me did. The other kids seemed to pick up on something different about me. And I didn't recognize it at the time, but what I came to realize later in life is that I was a queer kid. I heard a lot of less than complimentary language from other kids my age. There was a lot of bullying involved. And the message that I got at that time in my life was that who I was not okay, that I needed to change things about who I am, not just what I do, but actually who I am at the core of my being, in order to be acceptable to other people. And it would have been bad enough had it just been other kids my age who were giving me that message, but I was also hearing it from the adults in my life. They weren't talking about me specifically, but they were definitely talking about people like me, other LGBTQ people. Hearing how my family, how other adults in my life talked about people like me just made me want to turn in on myself and hide everything about myself from other people. And the thing is, I think that right now, especially in our country's history and everything, it's easy to underestimate the degree of impact that those kinds of experiences have on members of LGBTQ communities. I think it's easy to say, gay marriage is legal now, and the LGBT people have rights and all of that, and to say, it's in the past, right? Just forget about it and move on. But those experiences for me, and I think for a lot of other people as well, happened for me at a really formative period in my life. Happened for me at a time when I was figuring out who I am and what my place in the world is. And what happened at that time for me was that I learned to keep most of who I am a secret. Not just from the rest of the world, but eventually even from myself. And I was really deeply closeted for a long time. And as anybody who's had to keep a huge secret for a long time can tell you, that takes a toll. And it took a huge toll on my mental health. What happened was that by the time I got to college, by the time I graduated from high school and went to college, I was experiencing just a ton of anxiety and depression. It was overwhelming in my life. It affected my will to live. It certainly affected my ability to engage with other people or to get anything done in my life. And when I went to college, I wasn't even able to get myself out of bed in the morning to go to class. And so I ended up failing the first year and getting kicked out for non-attendance, basically. I went back home to live with my very angry and disappointed parents who had spent a lot of money on my education that amounted to nothing at that point. And I lasted there for about 4 or 5 months. And I just couldn't take it anymore at that point, and so I left. I left without any warning. I left without telling anybody, and they just came home one night and I was gone. I went to Seattle. I had a plan. I was going to stay with friends. Those plans fell through. Plans like that often do. And I ended up homeless. And I was homeless there between the time when I was 19 and 20. And part of that time was during the winter in Seattle. It was very, very cold. It was brutal weather, and the experience was really terrible for me. It was frightening. I got malnourished. About half my hair fell out. It was a really, really scary time for me. And that's the time in my life when I started to hear voices. And the voices that I heard them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even in my sleep. I couldn't get any rest, which just made it worse. And you know, that combined that with the malnourishment and the exposure to the elements and all of that, and I was in really bad shape. The voices I was hearing as demons screaming at me, and they were telling me that God hated me and that I was going to hell. And it was terrifying. I was just so distraught. I was having public mental health crises, and I want to mention one interaction that I had during a mental health crisis because it's something that I will remember for the rest of my life. The thing about being homeless, especially being homeless and having mental health issues, is that people treat us like we're invisible, right? They don't know how to respond, so they don't want to respond at all, or maybe they're frightened, or maybe they don't know what to do. And so people would walk past me and not make eye contact, or they actually, like cross the street or go around, take the wide route. And there was this one guy. He was an older man. He was a businessman, probably in his 50s, and he was wearing a suit and tie and a nice coat, and he was kind of balding, had little round glasses, and I remember just what he looked like. And he walked past me once, and if that's all that happened, I wouldn't remember him. But about 5 minutes later, he came back and he said, "I walked past you, and I saw that you seemed to be in trouble, and I wanted to make sure you were okay. I was worried about you." He said, is there anything I can do to help? And of course, there's not a thing in the world that this guy could have done. He couldn't have got me housing, anything less than getting me set up with a place to live and, something to keep me going for the next few months wouldn't have been enough. So I said, no, there's nothing you can do. And he said, okay, just wanted to check, just wanted to make sure you're okay. I hope your day gets better. And he left. And that was, the whole interaction didn't take more than a minute and a half. But that was the first time since I became homeless that I felt like a human being, that I felt like somebody saw me, like I felt like I wasn't invisible anymore. And it didn't change my life in that moment. It didn't take me off the streets. It didn't transform my life in that interaction. And yet, I can see that as one of the moments in my life that was a catalyst for change for me. Somebody, just a stranger, reaching out and being compassionate to me and giving me hope. Right? And I did get off the street. I still struggled. I took a long time from that point to get to where I am today. And I really struggled for a long time to find someone offering mental health services, a therapist or somebody else who could really understand where I was coming from and really give me some insight that would help me to understand what I'd been through and make progress in my life. And I got a lot of diagnoses. I got diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. I got diagnosed with OCD at one point. I got diagnosed with a bunch of different stuff, and it wasn't until the last 5 years when I saw a therapist here in the Bay Area who heard my story, and she looked at me and she said, "All these other things that people have told you is wrong with you? No, it's post-traumatic stress." She said, "What you've been through, where you've had to fight to be who you are, where you've had to fight for your life and experience all these traumatic experiences with homelessness and everything else," she said, this is complex post-traumatic stress. And it's not a disorder the way we've come to think of it. This is the mind and the body's way of coping with intense and unimaginable stress. This is something that has helped you, Jules, to survive. And thinking of it in that way, which nobody had ever said anything like that to me before, hearing that helped me to come to the realization that really transformed me, which was there was never really anything wrong with me. I was told that there were things wrong with me. I was told that I needed to change or be somebody different in order to be acceptable to the people around me, to be acceptable to the world. But really, I was always okay. And the things that I struggled with, the mental health challenges and all of that, were my mind and my body's way of protecting me and keeping me safe until it was okay for me to be who I am. And that's where I am today. One of the messages that really helped me to get to this point was hearing that I'm the expert on myself. Nobody knows like I do what I've been through, and nobody else knows like I do what I need. And so that's the way I live my life today. I'm happy to listen to other people's experiences, maybe their suggestions, maybe their advice, but I always have to take it with a grain of salt. I have to run it through my own filter and say, is that right for me? Is that going to be helpful for me? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But the only one who can decide that, the only one who has the final say on that is me. And living my life that way, I am by far the happiest that I have ever been. I'm the healthiest that I've ever been, mentally, physically, emotionally, every way. I work full-time doing a job that I love, where I get to bring my whole self to work every day and be who I am openly and notoriously out loud every day. I get to share my experiences with other people in a way that helps them to better understand their own experiences and to have hope for their own lives and their own outcomes. I am happily partnered. We've been together 8 years. We have a home and a cat together over on the other side of the bay, and I just love my life. There was a long period in my life where not only did I never think that I would be able to love it, but I didn't think I'd be able to make it through the end of that week, right? So I'm so happy and so honored to be able to share my experiences now, and I hope that being able to talk a little bit about what I've been through will be able to help someone else with what they're going through. I've had experiences, a lot of experiences actually, with both traditional therapy and medication. And some of it's been helpful and some of it hasn't. For a lot of the therapy and medication experiences I had early on, I really felt like people were trying to fix me. That they saw me as broken, they saw me as being a problem for other people, and I was given diagnoses, I was given medications that weren't necessarily intended to be helpful to me, but were intended to make me easier for the people around me to deal with. Now, that's not everybody's experience by any means. A lot of people have a lot of success with medication, and I think as long as the individual is the one making the choice and in control of that process, it can be a great thing. And there are a lot of medications out there that can be very helpful for people. Didn't really work for me. The best experience that I had with therapy was with a therapist who really asked questions and who tried to get to the bottom of my experiences with mental health issues. And she was able to kind of cut through all the BS and say, what you've experienced is trauma, and that trauma has affected how you relate to the world, and that's the root source of your mental health issues. Once we were able to recognize that, I started to make progress immediately and started to say, oh, it's what's happened to me, it's not who I am that's the problem. With medication, there have been a couple of things that have really helped me. The one that's helped me the most has been with anxiety, and that has been propranolol, which is a beta blocker that I take kind of like I would take aspirin for a headache. I only take it as necessary, and it acts like within half an hour, 45 minutes, and it just gets me through and helps get me to the other side. So that's been something that I still take occasionally, not all the time, but it's really helped me to manage the occasional anxiety spikes that come up. managing my mental health on a day-to-day basis has a lot to do with being able to incorporate my mental health experiences into my day job. I know not everybody is lucky enough to have that. I am, and so being able to just share my experiences publicly and talk about it just like I'm doing right now is a big part for me of continuing to process that and understand it in new ways and work through that so that it's not a scary thing for me to revisit in my own mind anymore, right? I'm just normalizing my own experiences by talking about them. That's a big part of it for me. I also just find things that help me to feel better physically, because I find that my mental health and my physical health are very closely related. So being able to walk a lot, right? I've incorporated a couple of hours a day of walking into my commute, like to and from work. My commute could be a lot shorter than it is. I voluntarily make it longer because I get to get out and I get to move around and I get to get fresh air and see things and hear things that otherwise I wouldn't necessarily have room for in my day. And also I find that my social connections are super important for me. Making connections with other people who understand the kinds of experiences that I've had, other people who may share them or have had similar experiences in maybe a different way, but people I feel comfortable sharing that part of myself with, and again, not having to hide that from anybody has been really helpful for me. Day-to-day self-care just means for me, a lot of it is keeping myself on a regular schedule, making sure I get enough sleep. That is huge. I can really tell the difference between when I get 5 hours of sleep a night and when I get 6 or 7. It's just night and day. But that's something that just kind of keeps me thinking clearly and helps me feeling good. Just managing my time through the day so that I'm not feeling rushed, that I'm not leaving things to the last minute. Procrastination was a big thing for me for a long time because of the anxiety that having to confront doing something that I didn't necessarily know how to do right. It would bring up a lot of anxiety in me, and so I would put it off. All of those things I think help contribute to me feeling physically and mentally healthy and well on a daily basis. One of the most important aspects of my mental health recovery has been personal choice and being able to be the one in charge of what my recovery looks like, the kinds of treatments that I'm going to engage with. When I was first getting mental health treatment, it was voluntary to the extent that I was seeking it out, but it was all done from a real medical model. Like, you know, the therapist was the one who was telling me what I should be doing and telling me to take this medication and, you know, kind of setting a plan for me and all of that. And it wasn't really until I started encountering therapists more recently in the past few years, there's a lot more of them out there now, who really believe in personal choice and who are encouraging the clients that they work with to take charge of their own mental health education and their own choices about, do you want to take medication? Do you want to try alternative treatments like acupuncture or, you know, mindfulness meditation? These kinds of things. There's a lot more choice available out there now, and there are things different things that are going to work for everyone. Not everybody is going to respond to the same thing in the same way. So I have found that exploring different options and finding out what works for me has been incredibly helpful in maintaining my mental health. My message to someone who's going through something similar to what I went through is, you are okay, you are fine. Just as you are, you don't need to change who you are for anyone. And there are people out there who are able to help provide the support, people even who have similar experiences, who are there to provide support and encouragement and help you to explore options for things that can help maintain mental wellness, physical wellness, all of the things that can help us to achieve the things that we want to achieve in our lives. You're not alone. There are so many of us out here who care and who have had experiences that we didn't think we were going to live through, but we did. And we're here waiting on the other side to welcome you and to help you across. So hang in there, it's going to be okay.